Okay, Dad,
Okay,
tell me about the Epic of Gilgamesh.
the Epic of Gilgamesh. I was sitting in a development circle for spiritualism, and it came to me that I had to study the Epic of Gilgamesh in order to find out the mysteries I was looking for about the spiritual life. And so I did that. I went out, bought a book. It wasn't the one I wanted, but it was a brand new one. It was Andrew George, I think his name is. He'd researched thousands of tablets of Gilgamesh and published this brand new book, very big, very well thought of book now, famous, but it was actually the 1999. It was the year it was published. So I read it, and the introduction said that the Epic of Gilgamesh dates back long before the Old Testament, and it was dates from 3000 BC, 2000 BC. But the importance of the Epic of Gilgamesh is in the version that was produced in Babylon in the first millennium BC, which actually contains the wisdom of Egypt and the Egyptian Book of the Dead, and the traditions of spiritualism, of the underworld, and that it was actually a text for young priests. You know, people entering the priesthood in Babylon had this adaptation of the legend of Gilgamesh, rather like our King Arthur legends in those days, but he changed it and redacted it and put into it all the hidden wisdom of Egypt to do with the underworld. He hid it into the text, the new text, and schools all over the world published it. They made the students, as an exercise, to copy it out onto clay tablets. So when the Christians, or whoever it was, burned the library at Alexandria and thought they were destroying all this material, it actually simply baked hard. And in the 19th century, it was found, and it was taken to the British Museum and translated.
Wow.
And found that there was the legend of the floods and things like that. It was very, very exciting moments, and museums all over the world began to collect the tablets, and this guy George managed to get transcripts of thousands and realized that it was all identical text. So he did all his research and produced this brand new book in the year 1999. And I was spot on. I read it, and the text itself contained a lot of mathematics. And I thought, what does this mean? And it was very odd. 2/3 or 20 leagues, 30 leagues, 50 leagues. And funnily enough, my friend gave me a children's maths book, which he'd found in a supermarket. I opened it, and it said 2/3 is the musical dominant. So I thought, well, 2/3 is what I'm reading in this Gilgamesh mathematics. So I got a calculator. I hated music up to that point. I had no idea what it was. I thought, right, I'm going to work out music for myself. So I got a calculator, and I worked out that every note of music is mathematical. It's 2/3. It has a frequency ratio of 2/3 with two other notes, one above it and one below it. And that actually, if you work them out from the start, say I chose F, because I believed it was a fundamental note. They said it was to do with the pyramids or something. I worked out, and it came out for me F, C, G, D, A, E, B, F sharp, G sharp, and so on.
Yep.
All the notes on the piano keyboard. And funnily enough, other people also used this F, C, G, and apparently there's quite a lot of Mozart airs begin with this riff, and the famous banjo duel goes F, C, G.
Yep.
The Beatles used it, and you can look them up and you can find.
Yeah, I'm sure. There are many.
There's a lot of people use it.
So the link between Gilgamesh and the mathematical book was really, you got 2/3 from Gilgamesh.
Well, Gilgamesh is 2/3 God.
Right.
And I thought, that is stupid, but he was not stupid. The guy writing this was very, very clever, and he was writing, he knew he was writing he was writing the hidden secrets of ancient Egypt, and I expected him to make allusions and make his pupils to use their brains. You have to want to get into the spirit world. If you, I mean, I decided to do it, but I was very, very concentrated on it.
So just remind me, Andrew George was the historian who pulled these tablets together. Who were the pupils? Were these pupils back in sort of 2,000 years ago when they were scribing the stone? Who are the pupils you're talking about?
I don't really know who it was, where they found these tablets.
Yep.
They found them all over the Middle East, but I haven't really followed that through, but apparently I think he researched 2,600 tablets in the end.
Wow, okay.
And found identical text.
Yep.
There are 12 so-called tablets. Well, that's a bit iffy, but they seem to be, including the one of the flood.
Okay, so the link, music is very linked to maths. Now you say there's a link of 2/3 from one note to the next note up. When you say 2/3, are you talking about the frequency of the note?
Okay, the frequency is, well,
You don't have to say what the frequency is.
I'm not sure, but I mean, the obvious way to look at it as an ignorant mathematician, and was quite angry about the snobbery of the whole music theory business, I just multiplied by 3/2, which is inverse.
Right. Yeah.
But funnily enough, a friend of mine gave me a book called The Myth of Invariance, written by a famous musicologist in Boston, and he had written a book about the fact that the ancient myths, Hindu myths, were written in the idiom of mathematics. And so he said was the Bible. I found some of those for myself later, but I began to correspond with this man, what was his name? Myth of Invariance by...
I've forgotten his name, sorry.
MacLean.
Yeah.
MacLean. Unfortunately, he was very old and he died shortly afterwards, our correspondence, but I did correspond with him by email, and I got on very well with him. I sent him my work. I sent him essays that I was writing, and he'd send back and say, I could have written that myself. But when I sent him my work on Gilgamesh, he said it was complete rubbish, was one. And then, later on, I adapted my work on Gilgamesh to the surface of a torus, and he wrote back and said that he had never thought of doing that, but he incorporated into his own...
Dad, sorry, let me stop you there. It's the myth of invariance. What was the key thing that you got from that book?
The myth of invariance...
Or one of the key things?
It was...
Was it to do with Discord?
Sorry?
Was it to do with Discord?
Discord. Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, if it's too much, we'll do that in another one. But what I'm trying to do is the link is you've talked about Gilgamesh, you talked about 2/3 God, that's where you got 2/3 from. Then you talk about the maths book that you got that then looked at how musical notes, actually if you multiply 2/3 or 3/2, you can get from one note to the next in a scale. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you went on to the myth of invariance, which I'm not quite sure what the link is.
Okay,
to those
I'll
two.
finish off talking about multiplying by 2/3.
All
I
right.
realised that, of course, if you multiply by 2/3, if you multiply the frequency by 1.5 times, then the frequencies go up and up and
Okay.
up. But of course, obviously, if you divide by 2/3 by 3 the same,
Yes,
you'll get the descending.
of course.
And it's a spiral, so the first spiral that you get from increasing the frequency,
Yeah.
you get a left-hand spiral
Yeah.
with 7 coils, and that covers the entire range of the music notes from bottom F
Yeah.
to top F is exactly 7 octaves.
Wow.
If you go to a piano keyboard and you count up from the bottom F,
Yeah.
every 7th note you will get that exact spiral going
Yeah.
up every 7 notes.
Okay.
But curiously, the backwards one you get from starting at the top and counting 5.
Yeah.
And that's what actually put me straight onto the clock face, because
So counting 5 notes down.
every 5,
Yeah.
and you get it in the reverse order.
Okay.
Which
So,
is,
yeah.
you also get that reverse order by multiplying by 2/3 instead of 3/2, so that the frequency decreases, but it gives you a 5-coil spiral, a 5-coil left-hand spiral.
So when you divide by 2/3,
Yeah.
you're still getting a coherent note. What note do you get?
Oh yeah, you get precise notes.
Great. That's great.
Yeah, you get F, C, G, D, A, E, B, for
Yeah.
example, the start, which one's
Going up.
but going up. But
Yeah.
if you go B, if you read that out in reverse,
Yeah.
you will get that in descending notes
You will.
if you go on the left-hand spiral.
Okay. So okay. Tell me about the spirals again. Because when you say on the left-hand spiral,
Okay, the left-hand spiral is what you get by multiplying by reducing the pitch, so the pitch goes down.
right.
And if you do that, you'll find that in 5 octaves,
Yeah.
you will also get the 12 notes that you're looking for, but you'll get them in 5 octaves instead of 7 octaves. The two spirals are comparable, but they are in a curious mirror image sort of relationship. It's like an inverse relationship. It's not an exact mirror image.
Yeah.
It's a mathematical inverse.
Okay. I'm still struggling to visualize that spiral from what you said. What creates the spiral?
Well, the spiral goes, if you put the notes on a clock face,
Yes.
for example,
Okay. Yeah.
like F,
We'll look at a diagram later.
yeah, the hours. So basically, think of the hours.
As each note, as sharps and flats.
Each note is one of the hours.
Well-
It's 1, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, or 1, 2, 3, 4.
So are those 12 notes of any scale you're talking about? What sort of scale is this?
The notes you get are precisely the ones I told you, F,
Yeah.
C, G, D, A, E, B.
Okay.
But actually, why does that make a spiral? Well, actually, the increase, if you're multiplying by 3/2,
Yeah.
you quite quickly get more than an octave. You know, you're going up. Well, in fact, you cover the whole piano keyboard.
Yeah.
It does go F, C, G, D, A, E, B.
All right.
And if
So-
you come down the other way but descending,
Yeah.
it goes precisely the other spiral.
Right. Okay.
But actually you'll find that the Spiral of Fifths is quoted by these snobby musicologists, it's as the fundamental structure of music.
It is. The Spire of Fifths, you can look it up on Wikipedia quite easily. But I'm just trying to visualise the spiral. Maybe we need to look at a diagram. I know it, but we're talking about
You want to visualise the spiral.
I was wondering if you could, if you can easily do it in words, but I think it's...
Well, it's all over the place in Neolithic remains. Actually, if you look in any Neolithic tomb, very often there is a 7-coil spiral. It goes round clockwise, and you also find a 5-coil spiral in other places.
Yes. So, okay, so we'll come back to where we see the spirals in ancient hieroglyphics and drawings and everything else. But you talked about spirals, and then you've mentioned the Spire of Fifths for the first time. Okay.
Okay.
That's the first time you mentioned it. So, what is this? Tell me what a fifth is.
Right. Apparently, as I understand, and that's what I learned then, was a fifth is a famous chord that all musicians know. It's a very pleasant sound. It's the most pleasant sound chord that you can find.
Yeah.
And it goes sort of FC is one, for example, and CG. Is a fifth.
So it's a chord. It's a chord. It's a combination.
It's a chord of a musical chord.
Right. Thank you.
It's the most pleasant chord that you can find.
And you've referred to it in the past that people like the dueling banjos in, what was the name of the film? But also the blind kid.
Deliverance.
Deliverance.
But the point is really that it's that sequence FCG is very common, so that everybody knows this spiral in the order that it exists on the spiral on a piano keyboard.
Yes.
From the bottom, FCGD, like that.
They do.
That's the one. And
okay, Dad. So, stop it there a minute.